Welcome back to One-on-One Sports. My name is Scott Katz, and today we are talking some MLB and NFL. And it all starts right now.
And black.
Boom! As we record this, moments away from day 2 of the NFL draft, but day 1 recaps, Nick Churchillo, Miles Hayford with me. Let's start with you, Nick Churchillo. Who's your biggest winner of day 1?
Okay, I know they didn't make a pick in the first round, but my winner has got to be the Buffalo Bills. And now, I could have went with like a safe option with like Marvin Harrison Jr. or like Caleb Williams, but like the Bills had a guy they wanted. And they ended up gaining a lot of draft capital and still being able to get the guy they wanted. They gained pick 95, 141, and 221. They got a third rounder, I think a fourth rounder, and like a seventh rounder. In addition to the fact that the guy that most people were mocking there and people that there's rumors that they're going to grab is still on the board at 33. So I think they won just by adding draft capital and still getting the guy they wanted.
But is that value they got big enough? We'll go to Miles now. Who is your big winner?
I don't know if it's enough because they didn't even pick anyone. I think the big winner is the Vikings. They got J.J. McCarthy, and they didn't even have to trade up that much for him. They got him at a reasonable price. And then they also got Dallas Turner, who was not expected to be anywhere near pick 17. Like, because of all the offensive players, they got Dallas Turner at a cheap price. And I think adding that new piece for the defense and then giving the QB of the future is going to really set up their team for success.
I agree with you that Dallas Turner was a great value pick, and he can be your Danielle Hunter replacement. I just don't see – well, they traded up for J.J. McCarthy, which is fine. You go to get your guy, but J.J. McCarthy can't be your guy. Like, he just hasn't shown that he's got that it factor, and he was a game manager in college, so, like, what happens when you go to the NFL? Like, the NFL turns really good college guys into game managers. What's it going to turn a game manager into?
Well, J.J. McCarthy went to my high school, and I worked out next to him once, so I can't accept any slander against him. But he may not be the most explosive quarterback. He's not like Jaden Daniels or Drake or Caleb, but I think he provides some consistency, and I think they need that. They've had some inconsistency at quarterback position the last few years. And I mean, if you pair him up with a guy like Justin Jefferson, he's still going to do extremely well. As long as he's got a guy like that, he's going to provide results.
He'll have results, but like they couldn't win a playoff game with Kirk Cousins. They won one playoff game with Kirk Cousins. I'm going to say I don't think I could put J.J. McCarthy over Kirk Cousins when it comes to that, just that it and having the thing that separates the good quarterbacks from the great quarterbacks. I don't see them going anywhere with J.J. McCarthy, and I don't want to say like he's going to be a bust, but it's kind of like a Daniel Jones where it's like, okay, we'll pay you $40 million, but like, where are we going from here?
Kirk Cousins, now a member of the Atlanta Falcons, and I think a perfect segue. Nick, we talked about it a little bit before starting the shoot. Who is your biggest loser of the draft?
My biggest loser is the Chargers with Joe Alt, because this isn't like the Bengals in 2021 where it was Jamar Chase versus Penei Sewell. Do you take the generational wide receiver or the generational offensive tackle? This is, do you take the really explosive in Malik Neighbors, and some people had him over Marvin Harrison Jr., or do you take the best tackle who's like slightly the best tackle?
Well, I kind of disagree with that because they've got Greg Roman at their offensive coordinator. They've really are committing to this run-first offense, and that's been a feature of Jim Harbaugh's offenses in Michigan. So I think wasting a top 5 pick on a wide receiver that's in a draft that's chock full of wide receivers, there's still like Keon Coleman, A.D. Mitchell, all these different guys. You can get still a stud receiver later. So I think building up that offensive line for that run-first offense is the move that they wanted to take.
I just don't agree with that because you're in a pass-first NFL. And I think we talked about during the free agency, like passing first has been the name of the game for how many years now. And there's just not that many game changers left. There were 3 game changers at the top: Unduze, Harrison, and Neighbors. And you passed on all 3 of those. So, okay, well, and come in the second round. Which wide receivers are going to be left? Because Keenan, Coleman, A.D. Mitchell, and the lad McConkey from Georgia are probably all going to be gone by your next pick. So who are you going with? Roman Wilson? And then maybe Blake Corum, just Michigan West? Like, I don't know if your run-first approach, because the Greg Roman offense has already proved to not work. I just don't see how passing on a game-changing wide receiver for an offensive tackle who wasn't even seen as generational is going to help you in the long run.
Yeah, I see your point there, but I don't think there's a loser bigger than the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, they chose Michael Penix when you just gave $180 million to Kirk Cousins. Like, what are you doing? It makes no sense. It just doesn't make any sense.
The pick, I'm not going to come out here and say that it was a good decision, but I'm not going to, I'm going to argue that they're not losers. Because Michael Penix, some people saw him as like a quarterback 2 or 3 in this draft. His main concerns is that he's old and injured, which him being old is probably why you don't draft him to sit behind Kirk Cousins. But it's proven to have worked. The Packers method with Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love, you sit them behind each other. Now, Michael Penix is older, so by the time he starts, he'll probably be 26, 27. But he has the NFL readiness. So if you need him to step up, he will be ready. And now you have him developed. He's with these guys. He will be the Atlanta quarterback of the future. And I've come out on the show and said I don't agree with the Kirk Cousins contract. So if that blows up in the Falcons' face, they have a plan B. Now, should you spend the 8th overall pick on a plan B? Probably not. But they still have a very serviceable quarterback that can carry the load of the franchise going forward.
How can he be the QB of the future if he's going to be like 26 or 27 when Kirk leaves? And also, it's not even like it's like he's old, but he really developed and he's like a Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams. He was kind of the 3rd or the 4th best. It's not like he was top 2 player and he's already 24.
He was leading that Heisman race for a little bit there right before Daniels took over and when Caleb started to falter. So he has the talent. And his cons, there are cons, but his pros outshine his cons, and I just see him being that guy for the Falcons.
Well, Kirk Cousins has an out in 2 years. You can hand the reins of the offense over to Michael Penix in due time. Miles, I'll start with you. What was that biggest surprise for you watching the draft last night as we're recording it and what you saw?
My biggest surprise was the 49ers picking Ricky Pearsall. One, why do they need a receiver? You've got Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. You really don't need a receiver. The secondary is pretty weak. You could beef up the line. There's way more needs for them. And also, if you're going to pick a receiver, Ricky is not really known in the mocks to be the best receiver available. You still had A.D. Mitchell. You still had McConkey. You still had Malachi Corey. You still had a lot of other guys that were projected to be a lot better than Ricky.
I kind of agree with that because, there is reports that they're probably going to trade Deebo Samuel later tonight on day 2, but I also agree that Ricky Pearsall probably is not the best option for if you're going to take a wide receiver because there's just so many better options. So do you really want this guy to be your 2 next to Brandon Ayuk? You're going from Deebo and Ayuk to Pearsall and Ayuk, and it's just not the same thing at all, and I do see that as a surprise. But my actual biggest surprise was the Packers taking Jordan Morgan, because it had been talked about leading into the draft that they're probably leaning offensive tackle if they didn't trade down. But I just know a lot of people mocked them to take a corner because Eric Stokes has proven to not be reliable at all. So you needed to take like a Kool-Aid McKinstry or a Cooper DeJean, who are both still on the board for day 2. But it just surprised that they ended up with like the offensive lineman 7 off the board when Graham Barton went the pick after, and Tyler Guyton, 2 people that were ranked ahead of him, went picks after them, and it was just a weird pick.
I mean, I like Jordan Morgan. I think he'll be a solid tackle, and I think the Packers wanted to beef up that line, especially for Josh Jacobs coming in. And also, like you said, Cooper and Kool-Aid are still available. I think they saw how the board was falling. First 14 players offense. They saw that, okay, we can still get a corner in the 2nd round. They got a few picks in the 2nd round. They got a few picks in the 3rd. They can trade up. They can still get a defensive player to get that new defense under a new defensive coordinator.
Well, that's all the time we have for you here on the Gridiron, but don't go anywhere. Baseball action from the Diamond coming right your way here on One-on-One Sports. About a month now into the MLB season, I'm here joined with Jacob Blank and Ethan Potash here at the desk. Biggest takeaways, biggest storylines after about a month now?
Yeah, so the White Sox suck. They are so bad. They are 3-22, which is tied for the second worst start through 25 games since the end of World War II, and the only team worse than them was the '88 Orioles, and that team started 0-21.
I mean, that is really bad. But, I mean, I think the Houston Astros, I mean, they made it all the way to the ALCS last season, last 6 seasons, and they are now 7-18, having a 7-18 start. It's not even like they're playing that terribly. It's just their pitching is atrocious. I mean, they're all in the IL right now with injuries. I mean, their hitters are still hitting well. Yordan Alvarez is still having a good season. Altuve looks like an MVP candidate right now, but the dynamic duo of Hunter Brown and JP France. Oh my God. Astros fans, I'm sorry that you have to witness those 4 and 5 starters.
You're not sorry. You're not sorry.
I'm not sorry as a Yankee fan, but the fact that they have to go through that every 10 days, I feel so bad. But, I mean, it's their worst start since 2011. I mean, everybody said not to panic on them early in the season, but now as we're, at the end of April, I think we should really start to panic on them.
It's weird because you're talking about how bad the Astros pitching has been, but they have the only no-hitter so far this season. But I just want to highlight how bad the White Sox have been. So, keep in mind this team won 93 games 3 years ago. So among the players on the White Sox that have at least 40 at-bats, there's 10 of them. One is hitting above 250. And it's Corey Lee, who has the second least at-bats of players that have 40 at-bats. They're last in team average, in team OPS, in team home runs, in team runs, and by a lot, too. Their team average is 192. They are the only team below 200. They have the least amount of runs by 18. By 18! They have 56 runs. The next is the Nationals, I believe, with 74. And their pitching isn't any better. They have the second highest team ERA, 5.26. The fourth highest WHIP, walks plus hits per innings pitch, at 1.47. And they have the 5th worst average against at 260. They also have the 3rd hardest schedule remaining. So they could probably challenge those 03 Tigers for the worst team of the modern era.
I mean, yeah, that's all true, but wouldn't you say that we expected the White Sox to be really bad? I mean, they're really bad. I mean, not as bad as what we thought they would be. We didn't think for them to be 3-22 bad, but I mean, the Astros, 7-18 after coming off of the ALCS appearance, signing Josh Hader.
I picked them back to the ALCS this year, too, a few weeks ago.
A lot of people picked them to win the AL West. I mean, they signed Josh Hader. Ryan Presley, one of the best relievers in the past half decade, he's been atrocious. Brian Abreu, since Adolis Garcia, I mean, what are we doing in Houston? Yep. I mean, Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah, Jose Abreu's on a Chris Davis run right now.
It is bad.
Well, we're talking 2 teams underperforming. What about 2 teams that are overachieving, if you will?
So I'm going to go with the Cleveland Guardians, who went 76-86 last year. They are currently 18-7, which is the 2nd best record in the MLB and the best record in the AL. Steven Kwan doesn't miss anything. He's currently hitting .346. He's in the 100th percentile for whiff rate and the 98th percentile for strikeout rate, which isn't too surprising because as a rookie 2 years ago, he didn't swing and miss at a pitch until the 117th pitch he saw, and he had 40 swings during that time. And those are both MLB records since they started tracking it in 2000 to start a career. They haven't been elite. Like, their hitting and pitching they're top 10, but they're not the only thing they're top 5 in is, I believe, team ERA, and they're number 5 in that. So they haven't really excelled at anything. They've just been consistently solid. They also have the 5th easiest schedule remaining, so they could maybe keep this up.
I mean, I'm going to have to go with the Milwaukee Brewers. I mean, they're 16-8. They made the playoffs last season, but nobody expected them to repeat their success this season. They just lost their best player, in my opinion, in Corbin Burns. I mean, many people predicted them to be probably the most regression out of any team in the league. Brandon Woodruff, I mean, one of their, that 3-headed punch they have with Woodruff, Burns, and Freddie Peralta, the 2 of them are kind of gone right now. I mean, Woodruff is on the team, but he's hurt. And Freddie Peralta stepped in. I mean, Colin Rea, 2.08 ERA. Who is this guy? I mean, He's pitching outstandingly so far. And then they're hitting. William Contreras hitting 365. He's one of the best catchers in baseball, if not the best. Or else, I mean, Will Smith, he's also very great. But, I mean, I'm talking about the Brewers here. But Blake Perkins hitting over 300. Bryce Terang hitting over 300. Christian Yelich, who's on the IL right now. I mean, he looked like before he went on the IL, he looked like his MVP self again, hitting 333, hitting with power too. I mean, Jackson Chourio, their top prospect, the number 2 overall prospect in baseball before the season started, he's not even playing as well as what we thought. I mean, he's showing some progression as the season goes along, but with all that, the Brewers are still 16-8, and it looks like they're just going to trend upwards as they get all their pitchers back.
Yeah, I mean, Chourio, 2004 born. I mean, how about that? And another miss by me, because I said a few weeks ago when we were on with Nick, I think it was me, Nick, and Caden that day, and I think I said the Brewers were going to miss the playoffs. And so 16-8, hopefully they can miss the playoffs. I don't go 0-2 there.
One of the Brewers' bigger acquisitions this year, bringing in from the Phillies, Rhys Hoskins, another team really busy in the offseason. The Los Angeles Dodgers spending over $1 billion and haven't had the season they look to have had.
Yeah, well, first off, Rhys Hoskins, as a Mets fan, can't stand that guy. But, yeah, so on to the Dodgers. They're my disappointing team, which is weird because they're 16-11. So you normally, when you're 16-11, you're not disappointing. But, I mean, this team, people were expecting this team. I was expecting this team to be on a record pace. They spent over $1 billion in the offseason. Ohtani is mashing balls right now. He's hitting 358. Hit a moonshot versus the Mets the other day. Yamamoto's been okay. He has a 3.54 ERA. He has a 1.17 ERA plus, so he's been solid. Glasnow, who Nick coined as Tyler made of glass now, has been lights out. He has a 2.92 ERA and a 1.42 ERA plus. However, their bullpen has been shaky, and they really, for them, it's been a tale of 2 lineups. So of the 9 hitters with the most at-bats, 4 are hitting above 300, and 3 of those are hitting above 350. But 4 of the other 5 are under 250, and 2 of those are under 200. And they also have the 7th easiest schedule remaining, so maybe they can pick it up.
I mean, the Blue Jays are also another team that is very disappointing. I mean, Jose Barrios, I mean, he looks like his Minnesota self right now with how he's pitching. He's been amazing, but I think the talk of the town is how bad Kevin Gausman's been to start the season. One of the starts I watched of his was against the Yankees, and he looked horrible. His splitter, everybody saw that splitter coming. They would always take that pitch, and they were crushing his fastball. He gave up, I'm pretty sure it was 5 runs in the first inning. And then not even just that, Vladdy Guerrero, everybody hoped he'd bounce back this year. He looks like a shell of his former self. He just finished 2nd in the MVP voting a couple seasons ago, and now he's just been awful. He's slow, he can barely hit, he's a bad fielder. I mean, the Blue Jays, with the amount of talent they have, they should be better than what they are right now.
Yeah, it feels like the Blue Jays have been poised to break out for a few years now. My roommate's a Blue Jays fan, so he's very he's not too happy right now. But I just gotta think, $1 billion and you're 16-11. Like, come on. Like, the Braves are 17-6, which is the best record in the league. You can't be 17-6. You spent $1 billion. Like I just expected more from him.
I mean, I get that, but also
Chris Taylor is hitting .048 right now.
But then Mookie Betts right now looks like the MVP of the National League. I mean, Shohei Ohtani's been hitting really well. It's just Freddie Freeman hasn't looked like himself right now. He's hitting. When I last checked, he was hitting around like 270. I mean, for him, he usually hits over 300. So, I mean, he's been kind of disappointing too himself.
Some disappointments all around the diamond here early in this season. All the time we have for you talking about baseball. We'll get the rest of the guys back and wrap up the show here on One-on-One Sports. I've been Scott Katz with Ethan Potash and Jacob Blank. Thank you so much for tuning in to One-on-One Sports. My name is Scott Katz with the crew beside me. We've had a great time filming today, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Don't forget, like and follow here on Instagram and YouTube at One-on-One Sports. And as always, whose side are you on?